Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 12th of March, 2025. I am Graham Hughes. Welcome to the show. This is Morning Brew on Politics Social. Big shout out to Scott and Billy Kershaw and Diz, Sarah Davis and Nick and Diff and Leapshin and Billy Kershaw and Koala Meat and the Witchy Goth and SG and Colin Baker in the chat. If you'd like to join them, just hit the subscribe button. Tap it and wait for about a minute, and then you'll be able to join our friends in the chat here. Become a socialite. If you want a little rose after your name, all you need to do is join the channel. Consider it. That's all I'm saying. Join the channel, and you'll get a little rose after your name and your name at the end of the show when I update the credits. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the dangerous myth that things will speak for themselves, because they don't. If things just spoke for themselves, we wouldn't need advertising, marketing, journalism, or political campaigns. And there are some staggering, absolutely monumental failures of political messaging. The EU investment in UK communities. Just as one example, They will build a stadium, they'll build an arena, and they'll put a little tiny plaque on the side of it saying, co-funded by the EU. The EU has given like 500 million euros towards this project, and we get a little tiny plaque. Meanwhile, the Brexiters plaster £350 million a week for the NHS, a massive lie on the side of a bus. What does everyone talk about? Do they talk about the tiny little plaque on the side of the building that the EU have helped build? No, they talk about the bus. Things speaking for themselves is bullshit. This is what the left need to understand. I'm going to give you some examples when reality should have been obvious, but it just wasn't. And I feel like Labour in the UK and the Democrats in the US are making the same mistake. And I'm going to make a strenuous argument here that you need to shout louder to be heard. As someone who has kind of a loud voice anyway, this is my area of expertise. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. But I'll give you some examples, right? So first of all, like I said, EU investment in Britain. But let's think about this for a second, right? The blue plaque fail, I like to call it. Most of the places that got the most amount of EU funding, Liverpool excluded in this, voted for Brexit. Like, there were places in like Merthyr Tydfil in Wales, which it was only kept alive by the EU investment that was coming into the city because no one else, the Westminster didn't care about Merthyr Tydfil. They voted to get out of the EU because all they saw was some shitty student A-level statue that had been put in the town square that had a little plaque on it, and they went, is that all they're doing? Okay. Instead of maybe, I don't know, calling the Liverpool what's it called? The M&S Arena now? It was the Echo Arena for a bit. They call it the EU Arena. It's co-funded by the EU. It wouldn't be there down at the docks in Liverpool, where they hold the Labour Party conference. That building would not be there if it wasn't for the European Union. So call it the European Arena, the European Union Arena. Plaster it in European Union flags. But no, we got a little plaque. You've got to drive down the side. So if you're actually going into the building, you probably don't see it. It's actually on the roadside, which is on the river side. The plaque, I've seen it. It's little tiny plaque on the side of this massive arena. Brexit's broken promises. Oh, we thought it would be self-evident. Of course it'll be self-evident. As soon as the price of beer doubles from £3.50 on average to about £7 on average, that'll be when the scales fall from people's eyes. Sorry, despite people's attempts to sort of portray this idea that we're going to get people to come on our side, come on side by the lived reality of things getting a bit shit. It's never happened in the past. What makes you think it's going to happen now? Yes, the price of beer has doubled. But the Tories just blame it on COVID or the invasion of Ukraine or the man on the moon or trans people or shoeless orphans from Albania or something. They'll blame it on something else. Nothing bad that happens, the right will take responsibility for. Or the Brexiters or the Trumpers. They'll never take responsibility for anything bad that happens under their watch. You're seeing this now with Trump. He's blaming the economy tanking on his watch, on Biden. The guy who said that the economy was going to do really, really well. Once he's in power, it's going to go great guns. The opposite has been true. The absolute opposite has been true. So the economy in the UK is shrinking. Small businesses are ruined. The NHS is collapsing, and yet people still defend Brexit. It's not overwhelming. If we had a referendum tomorrow, I bet your bottom dollar it wouldn't be too far off 50-50. And I know that we get these, actually, if you look at it, all the constituencies in the UK would actually vote to stay in the EU now. Yeah, by a wafer thin margin. Okay, somewhere like Liverpool, yeah, it's going to be like 66-33. But like other places, it's 51-49. A gust of wind in the right direction will see that referendum go through on the side of the Brexiters again. And they don't even need a gust of wind, though, because they've got all the newspapers. They've got all the means of communication. They make the loudest noise. They sell stuff. They sell the dream. They sell their nightmares. They sell all their shit they want to sell. And the left sit there going, well, it's self-evident, yeah? Well, it's self-evident. Trump impeached, attempting a coup, racking up 91 criminal charges. You'd think that would be self-evident, wouldn't you? You think that would be enough. But it's not. It's not. What about the Iraq War? Weapons of mass destruction? Millions of people marched against it, and the media repeated Bush and Blair's lies, and the war happened anyway. I mean, we could say, oh yeah, well, it'd be self-evident that it was a bad idea in hindsight. No, it was a bad idea at the time. I remember people talking about it. A lot of us on the left at the time who were actually members of the Labour Party were just bamboozled by the fact that, okay, if you squint, you could just about justify an invasion of Afghanistan to stop something like 9/11 happening again. Just about. But Iraq had nothing to do with it. And has time proved Tony Blair right? No. We can say, oh, well, it should have been self-evident at the time. And to many of us, it was the fact that it was a bad idea. But the marketing and the advertising all went into, saying, yep, this is the thing to do. This is what we need to do. Then we got the 2008 financial crisis. The bankers crashed the economy. The Tories imposed austerity. The UK suffered. But they still sell it as fiscal responsibility. Well, they sold it as fiscal responsibility. Hopefully Labour aren't going down the same route. One of the big ones for me is climate change. We've got wildfires, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones, record temperatures. And people still believe it's a hoax. And those of us going, well, the science will show itself because there's going to be all these natural disasters that are going to happen. The natural disasters are happening, and yet the needle isn't shifting on the dial. People who don't believe in climate change, people who think climate change is a hoax, are still not in the majority necessarily, but there's enough of them out there. And there's the people who don't think that it's that big a deal. It's not something that we really need to be worrying about, and we're being a little bit hyperbolic, going on about it all the time. And it's like, no, this is an existential threat to humanity. Do you understand it? No. And who have we got on our side? We've got scientists who, God bless them, aren't necessarily the best at public speaking, sitting there in the studio with 99 privately educated, rah-rah vugger-buggers screaming at them, going, well, if you want to say 100% that it's all caused by climate change, then it wasn't all caused by climate change, was it? And the poor scientists like, well, we've got the evidence. The evidence should speak for itself. Look at we've got this data going back millions of years of how much CO2 is in the atmosphere, and it's the highest since the fucking dinosaurs were wiped out. Seriously, this is a bad thing. Well, And they listen to the posh person because he goes out, he knows how to talk. He knows the rhetoric. He knows the patter, the salesman shit, the used car salesman, which is what Trump turned himself into yesterday. Then you got Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which is a blatant act of imperialism, but Russian propaganda continues to convince people on the left, not just Nazis, but people on the left, convincing them that Ukraine is somehow to blame for it because, NATO is being naughty. Naughty NATO. Ooh, don't be naughty, NATO. Don't go around invading other people's countries. Something that NATO's never really done. That's not what NATO was set up for. It's there to defend itself against other. But yeah, we shouldn't have poked the bear, says Nigel Farage, and people on the hard left singing from the same hymn sheet as they did during Brexit when they said, we've got to stop these foreigners coming from taking our jobs. That was said on the hard left, and it was said on the hard right. Okay, anyway, so COVID-19, anti-vaxxers, a global pandemic. People still think it doesn't exist. They think it was a hoax. Like, how much evidence do you need? But here's the thing. I'm trying to stress over and again. The facts do not speak for themselves. Stop relying on facts to speak for themselves because a lie has got halfway around the world before the facts have got their fucking pants on. And then you've got the Labour's 1997 New Deal. They assume that progress will speak for itself. And this is the same mistake that Labour are making now. They're saying, they use the expression, it will speak for itself. When people feel better, it will speak for itself. But, people can have a bad time, have a good time and having a bad time if you market it correctly. You remember that Glasgow thing last year when it was supposed to be Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and it was really miserable and shit, right? If they recreated that now as an ironic thing for people to go and see, like Banksy or something like that, Disneyland, that would attract a lot of people. People will go to it because it's all marketing. It's all like, well, this is what I'm expecting to get out of this, and it should be a good laugh, so let's go and have a good laugh. If the guy who was running it had any kind of commercial sense, he would have reopened it as a piss take of his own thing. But I think he's too busy getting sued. I don't know. And then we've got the success of the far right. Every time the Tories get in, every time the far right get in, they fuck everything up. They fuck everything up. All the problems that America is facing right now, pretty much, all in the economy, in the cost of living, in the fact that young people can't afford houses, the housing shortage, the lack of public infrastructure, the lack of public transport, everything. The fact that people are just not being able to live the same quality of life that their parents did on one, average income. And that all goes back to Reagan. The military issues that have come, the global security issues that have come from the Middle East problems, well, George W. Bush. Every time they get in, they fuck things up. The last Trump presidency, he killed 500,000 Americans with COVID. People forget. People just go, oh yeah, yesterday, goldfish memory. If I'm all right till midnight, I'm all right, Jack. And so we just, again and again, the fact that the Tories bring on economic hardship time and time again should be enough to prove to people that they need to be out. But in the 2015 election, they actually increased their vote share. The Tories increased their vote share after 5 years of austerity. And who lost the vote share? The Lib Dems. Because people blame the Lib Dems, but they didn't blame the Tories. Yeah, work that one out. Anyway, so I've talked about this before, but there's a thing called the curse of knowledge. And what it is this. I want you to tell me in the comments, if you haven't heard me ask this before, what tune did I just clap out? Can someone just tell me in the comments what you think the tune was that I just clapped out with my hands? So the curse of knowledge is a psychological phenomenon where people assume others know what they know, but they don't, right? Experts, politicians, and campaigners assume the facts are obvious, but if you don't hammer the point home, people don't get it. And this isn't about people being stupid or ignorant or lazy even. This is just about the fact that you do not know stuff until people point it out. And that goes for politicians, it goes for average Joe on the street. It goes for CEOs of companies. It goes for people who answer questions on fucking game shows. If they do not know the answer, they don't know the answer. They might be able to hazard an educated guess, but half the time they'll get it wrong because they don't know the answer. Once they're told the answer, they'll probably never forget it. Koala Meat got it. Star Spangled Banner says for no. Someone's had a birthday. Ooh, that's awesome. Koala Meat's right. It was happy birthday. It was the first bit of happy birthday. Now listen to it again. Seems really obvious now that you know. When they did a test on this, like, one of those student things that they do in universities when they're studying, researching things, they had X many students and they asked people how many people they thought would get it right. And nearly everyone said, 50%, 40%, 50%. The actual figure was like 1%. It was a tiny, tiny number who actually got it right. But because I know what it is and because the students who were told what it was knew what it was, it seemed really freaking obvious, which it obviously does to me and to Koala Meat. Maybe Koala Meat's heard this one before. But the fact that if you have that knowledge, it just seems so obvious. But if you haven't got the knowledge, it's just random claps. It could be anything. It could be the Star Spangled Banner. So, Veg Pie got it as well. Happy birthday to you. Very well done. Got some smart people. Smart people in the chat. Veg right. I got it right. Says Veg Pie. Yes, you did. So real world examples. Labour and Brexit, they thought that people would just know Brexit was a disaster, so they didn't fight back hard enough during the referendum. It's obvious it's a bad idea, but they didn't bother to explain to people why it was a bad idea. So people just went, well, I'll just listen to whatever politician's making the most noise. And who was making the most noise? Nigel fucking Farage and Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings and other privately educated fuckwits with a big message on the side of a bus or a poster that says breaking point filled with brown faces coming into the UK or somewhere. I don't know. Coming into Europe because we're in the EU and that's what happens in the EU. Futum Shunk says, happy birthday to you. Say, can you see? I got the right rhythm, but the wrong tune. Well, it's really difficult. If you haven't heard it before, I should have done something else. I should have done like Mr. Brightside or something, made it really, really difficult. I'll know what it was. Do you know what I mean? Like, but would you? Let's do it again. Shall we do it again? Yeah, okay. There you go. That's all you're getting. It's really obvious to me what that is. Good luck. But yeah, the Democrats and Trump, people thought that the Democrats just thought that people would know after everything that Trump has done and he's been accused of and all the horrible things he said and all the horrible things he's done. It would be self-evident that he wouldn't make a very good president of the United States of America the first time around. The second time, it was even more obvious. But did they capitalize on it? Did they demonize him? Did they blame everything on him? When did they mention the fucking wall? This is something that drives me up the literal wall. I don't remember in that whole campaign when anyone said to Trump, where's your fucking wall, mate? You told everyone you were going to build a wall. You told everyone you were going to repeal Obamacare. You told everyone you were going to solve all the military problems in the world. You told people, and just go on about where's the wall? Where's the wall, Trumpy boy? Where's the fucking wall? No one said it. Because they thought that it was self-evident that he didn't build the wall. But if you talk to Trump voters, which I have done, they think he built the wall. They think there's a wall there now. They're never going to go and see it. They're never going to go and visit it. But from the media that they take in, they just believe that the wall is there. That he absolutely, he did that promise. They believe that Trump was the greatest president they ever had. Even though he left the White House in disgrace, 500,000 Americans died on his watch because of COVID, because him and his team were just completely inefficient. And he was talking about injecting yourself with bleach or putting, I don't know, daylight up your bum or something. It was just, yeah. First three claps were definitely every day. Thinking about your dad's balls. No, it was not thinking about your dad's balls by by A. Thompson. No. Warren, when we held the referendum, things were shit, so the choice was between continuing shit and making changes and kicking G in the spuds. And then we've got Veg Pie saying, ooh, the captain of the cargo ship arrested after collision with the tanker in the North Sea is a Russian national. The ship owner has told the Reuters news agency. Ooh, the plot thickens. I was going to talk about that. I'm kind of glad that I didn't actually now, because that was obviously malicious. Well, might have been malicious, but I've spoken about this before. When you're on a ship, the captain is responsible for the ship. Even if the captain's asleep, even if the captain's not on duty, even if the captain is actually the boat's alongside in a port and the captain's out on the town. If anything happens on that ship, it's the captain's fault. Even if the pilot, the local pilot, comes out, gets on the boat and helps steer it into port and steers it straight into a wreck, and the the ship capsizes and sets on fire as a result of being steered into a wreck by at the command of the pilot, it's still the captain's fault. And that's the way I think politics should work. When things fuck up, these politicians need to take responsibility. They really do. But I mean, the people on the left tend to do that, but people on the right tend to not do that. It's just one of those things. So yeah, you know, the EU expected people to see funded projects and understand the connection, whereas Farage on the TV every day blaming the EU for everything. You know, your wife left you, your dog died, your fucking garden shed fell apart. It's all the fucking EU's fault every fucking day. Whereas the EU's like, no, the thing. Look at the thing. Look at the. And you must, I mean, look, this is the lesson. You must communicate like your audience knows nothing. Not to be patronizing, but because often they don't. About whatever it is you're talking about, they don't necessarily have the same grounding as you. I mean, I can, as you've seen when I played Where the Fuck Are We, I can zoom in pretty much to any city in the world and just know exactly where it is in the world. I know where the country is, I know where the fucking city is. Why? Because I've been there. That's really self-evident to me, but I do get the fact that most people can't do that because it's not a talent or skill or not a toolkit that most people have got, you know, knowledge set, whatever you call it. I get that. I completely get that. And I try not to be patronizing about it because I know that that's a bit unusual that someone can actually do that. And the reasons behind me being able to do that aren't to do with me studying or, you know, studying in university and going through all the map atlases and maps and working out where all the cities are. It's simply because I've been there. And therefore it sticks in my mind, it sticks in my memory in a way that where things go in the kitchen doesn't necessarily stick in my memory. I don't know why. It's an ADHD thing. So yeah, did anyone get that answer to what I was saying? Sally's very good. The other problem with the curse of knowledge that once people learn the truth, they overwrite the fact they didn't know. And they think they knew all along. Subconscious newspeak. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. But that's fine. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't mind that as much as them not people assuming that people know stuff when they actually don't. Di, oh, thank you very much. Di's got a dichotomy for me. Thank you, Di, for that. For the super chat, £10 super chat. Article 5 is about mutual defense. What happens if a NATO member attacks another, e.g., the US versus Denmark? Well, I think the US should be thrown out of NATO for what they've done, for suspending military aid and military intelligence. They've got blood on their hands. 25 people died in Ukraine over the weekend because Ukraine's now flying blind and doesn't know when it's being attacked or how or whatever. We're just lucky that Russia have got very little in the way of armaments left because they've used them all up. But yeah, an absolute disgraceful dereliction of duty. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to the straight question of what happens if America attacks Denmark in the form of Greenland. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think that America should be part of NATO anymore. I think they should just be unilaterally kicked off. I think we're in Zanzibar, says Alan Jackson. Well, it did say Zanzibar on the bloody side of the It wasn't my first instinct, was it? Because I saw a cactus and I thought that was in South America. I wasn't far from South America. I was on an island off the coast of South America. But there you go. Christopher Ball says, let's assume climate change isn't real. And the next question is, why does God hate Americans? Hurricane twisters, earthquakes, wildfires, school shootings. Yeah. I don't know. Audrey, life experience and book learning find it difficult to recall from book memory. Yeah. Alan, no, it's Panama City. Well, I mean, if you've ever been to Panama City and you've been to, well, any city actually in Central America, but particularly San Jose, which I originally thought that it was because I couldn't see any tall buildings. San Jose doesn't have much in the way of tall buildings, whereas the main Cinta Costera um, of Panama City has got loads of tall buildings. So if you can't see tall buildings in the distance, it's kind of, I mean, it's an informed guessing game, really. But not too far out. I'm just pissed off. You see the sign Zanzibar, keeping Zanzibar cool. That's what it said on the side of. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it was an episode of Where the Fuck Are We the other day where I was running around going, where the hell am I? And it had on the side of a bus or a lorry or something, it's had Zanzibar written, like keeping Zanzibar cool. So I was like, oh, we're in Zanzibar then. So I went to Zanzibar in Tanzania, and no, it wasn't. It was Curacao, an island in the Caribbean that is owned by the Netherlands, part of the Netherlands Antilles. And Phillips, I thought ND people were supposed to find it difficult to think outside the box. In what? I thought it was ND people neurodiverse people who were supposed to find it difficult to think out of the box. In my experience, it's neurotypical people who can't. I've never heard that, and sorry, that someone who is ADHD can't think outside the box. It's all we ever do. I can't think inside the box. That's my problem. But yeah, maybe other neurodiversity people have different outcomes. I don't know. But yeah, so let's go back to what we were talking about. So the Labour and the Democrats, this just govern well fallacy. Labour's 2029 strategy. People will feel better off, and that will be enough. It's a suicidal strategy because the Tories and the media control the narrative, and perception matters more than reality. I can't stress this enough. If Labour doesn't aggressively market their wins, they'll be blamed for every problem, and they will not get any credit for anything decent that they do. And we saw this a couple of weeks ago. Me and Phil were both, spitting feathers about the fact that they had got the waiting times down months ahead of schedule. They thought they were going to cut the waiting list by 2 million in a year. They actually did it by November last year. Like, they did it so fast. And yet, the only people who seem to be talking about it were like me and Phil. Some talking heads on the internet. Do you know what I mean? Like, why weren't Labour screaming that from the rooftops? And then the Democrats hope for a Trump implosion. The idea that Trump's disastrous second term will speak for itself and lead to a landslide in the 2026 midterms and in 2028. It's not going to work, dickheads. It hasn't worked before. Why do you think this will work this time? Look at what happened when he left the White House. Look at that press conference with fucking New York mayor guy with the hair dye running down his head. Where they held a fucking press conference outside the Four Seasons Landscaping in Washington, D.C. I mean, like, fuck's sake. If things were going to speak for themselves, then Trump shouldn't have even been allowed to stand as the Republican candidate. Never mind win the freaking election. Trump voters will blame others. They will blame the deep state, the immigrants, the media, the woke, the DEI, the lesbians, the gay people, the trans people. They'll find someone else to blame because the far-right media machine rewrites history in real time. Democrats don't go on an attack. They will lose the messaging war. They've already lost the messaging war. That's why they lost the fucking election. They were telling people, you should feel better off because the economy is better off. People don't know. People just don't know. They're getting on with their lives. They're not looking at statistics. They're not looking at spreadsheets and graphs and bar charts. They're getting on with their lives. What is so difficult for the politicians of the world to fucking understand this? It is like someone who is obsessed with footy and they talk about footy all the time and they cannot conceive of someone not giving a shit about the footy. And but some people don't give a shit about the footy. They're just getting on with their lives. It's not a big thing to them. So the one thing they might watch a year might be the World Cup final. So make it a good World Cup final. Just... And, this is speaking for itself. My whole treatise, my whole patter this morning is just speaking for itself. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And what Labour and the Democrats need to fucking get that, and the EU and NATO need to get around their fucking stupid heads, is the power of narrative. The right understand this. The right understand that marketing is everything. Why do companies spend billions on advertising? Because perception shapes reality. That's why. And if your policies are great but you don't sell them, people won't believe they work. What's the point of inventing something fucking amazing and then just not telling anyone about it? And just assuming that someone's going to knock on your door one day and go, I believe you've invented something amazing. Would you like to show it to me? I mean, it just doesn't happen. You've got to get out there. You've got to make some fucking noise. But the people on the left are like, oh, well, just we'll lead them to it. In America, they think that Trump is going to implode. And over here, they think that the evidence will speak for itself. And they're both wrong. They're both dead wrong. Thank you very much for the super chat from Resloy812. Rich people take the piss here with 45% tax. Most European countries, it's at least 48, if not over 50, while people can barely buy food. So wrong. Yeah. Well, I mean, in the wake of World War II, our tax rates for the very, very rich went up to 95%. Referred to in the song Taxman by the Beatles, where they complain about, I'll tell you how it's going to be, 19 for me, 1 for you, 19 for me. 95% tax rates. The Beatles wrote a song whinging about having to pay tax. So did the Kinks. Taxman's taken all my dough, left me in the stately home. Was that the Kinks? I think it was the Kinks. They used to write songs about how much they were being taxed, but I thought it was fair enough because they were the richest people in the country at the time. So fucking pay your tax, Beatles. It's not like they're badly off now. Well, I suppose 2 of them are because they're dead. But Paul McCartney's doing all right, isn't he? He's a billionaire. I like Max, but the comments can get a bit overboard. What? Spoiler, it will not be a good World Cup final, especially now Infantino is denying broadcaster halftime advertising by staging a halftime show. Yes. And they've got some public school boy, some fucking choir boy from some posh school. Ricky Martin? No, Tim Martin. No, he's a private school bastard, isn't he? Chris Martin, that's it. Chris Martin from the House Martins. Oh, no, that was Fatboy Slim, who also went to private school. No, Chris Martin from Coldplay, that posh band, along with Ed Sheeran, who's also posh, who went to private school, and all the other people who get to make music, like the lead singer of the 1975, who also went to private school. Yeah, all them, got to get together, and they're going to have a little sing-song, I think. Jesus. Anyway, but yeah, that's going to be the halftime show for the World Cup in America, if they're allowed to have it. I don't think they should be allowed to have it, given their current performance, and it's supposed to be spread across America and Canada and Mexico, and they're not getting on so much at the moment, so maybe that's not the best of ideas. Just saying. Anyway, like I said, if your policies are great but if you don't sell them, no one will believe they work. The right absolutely understand this. They instinctively understand it, whereas the left instinctively seem not to understand it at all. The Tories, Republicans, and far-right parties, they use marketing, advertising, and propaganda very, very efficiently. The left must learn to get down in the gutter and fight dirty, or be crushed. Be absolutely crushed. Because people can talk all they like about the guardrails and the checks and balances, and the courts are going to come and save the day, and the Constitution's going to ride over the fucking hill on a fucking white horse, but it's not going to. It's not going to. And these Democrats need to be pointing out what Trump is doing every fucking day, in every medium that they can. If that means going on the fucking Joe Rogan podcast, well, go on the Joe Rogan podcast and spend an hour slagging off Trump, going through all the terrible things he's done and how it's going to affect your average American person, average American voter, who usually doesn't have time for shit. Stop relying on facts to win arguments. It doesn't work. What wins arguments is rhetoric and emotion, That's what wins arguments. You have a debating society, and it will be this house believes that the moon is made of cheese. Everyone in that room knows that the room is not made of cheese, but who wins? The person who makes the best argument, not the person who is right, not the person who has the facts, the person who is the best at rhetoric. And we on the left, and we scientists, people who know what the facts are, we need to get better at rhetoric. My stepdaughters go to state school. They don't get taught debating. They don't get taught public speaking. They don't get taught it in school. Bet your bottom dollar in the private school down the road, they get taught it. And over 50% of the kids who go to private schools end up voting Tory. So there's your problem right there. We need to flood the media with our narrative. We need to make sure that all the videos that people see on YouTube are what we want them to see. When we don't, not only do we fucking, allow GB News to run unrestricted around telling bullshit to people and fomenting race wars, they also get retweeted by us. We go, oh God, see what this dickhead wrote. See what this dickhead said? And we retweet it. We post it. We post it on Facebook. We post it on fucking Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram and YouTube. We go, look at what this dickhead said. We're just giving more advertising to the fucking dickheads. I'll tell you what, them on that side, they very rarely show a clip of someone on the left doing something daft. Have you noticed that? Because they don't want to give them the advertising. They don't want to give them the publicity. They'll give them the airtime. But then we've got the problem on the left that we don't get funded and that people on the right get funded. So we have to do things that are a bit clickbaity in order to get people to watch our videos and perhaps give us a few super chats in order to, keep the fucking internet bill paid. Meanwhile, they're all buying fucking Ferraris and Cybertrucks. It's crazy, isn't it? And we also need to call out lies absolutely relentlessly. I'm not saying that we need to lie in order to win. Don't take that from what I'm saying. If you're taking that from what I'm saying, I'm not explaining it very well, and I apologize. I'm not saying we need to lie. I'm saying that we need to call out the lies relentlessly. And we need to be very clear when we talk about what needs to be done. We can't just put our head down and mumble about all these bloody scientific studies that no fucker's going to read. We need the headline. I was in a meeting a couple of months ago, and no shade to anyone who was there at the meeting or the person who said it, but there was a guy at the meeting, and he was talking about the circulating current that is going out of going out of action that keeps Britain and Western Europe warmer than it logically should be, otherwise would be, I should say, considering what latitude we live at. We live at the same latitude as Siberia in Russia, and we live in the same latitude here in Durham as Lake Baikal, which is frozen over most of the year. They have minus 40 degree fucking winters and stuff, right? Anyway, so this guy is just talking and talking and talking, and I said, the Gulf Stream, and he's like, well, actually, it's not really the Gulf Stream. It's called the undulating, overlapping, the Atlantic sort of circulating current oceanic graph, and I don't know. My brain turned to mush. I just couldn't listen, because I knew it, right? I know I've read up about this, right? I don't know the exact scientific terms. I don't give a fuck. I'm just getting on with my life. And I'm someone who cares about the environment, but at the end of the day, having to sit there and listen to someone explain in detail, in boring, laborious detail, the mechanics of this thing. And it was, and someone else picked it up and said, I think that's the problem. Are you going to go door to door, like selling that, explaining to people? Labour had this problem in 2019. They had 100-page fucking manifesto. What was Labour's plan for Brexit? Well, you see, hang on. Just let me refer to my notes. This is an election in the middle of fucking winter. Okay, just imagine you've opened your door, right, and you can't really afford to have the heating on, so it's quite cold inside anyway. But you open the door, and now it's even colder inside because you've opened the front door, right? And there's someone there, and they say, hello, I'm from the Labour Party. I'd just like to go through some of the things that we're going to do for the alleviation of the Brexit dichotomy in the society in which we live today. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a public consultation. And after the public consultation, we will put it to Parliament to have a non-binding referendum vote on whether we should accept the terms of the EU deal that we will negotiate. It'll probably take a few years to do that, or there may or may not be an option to remain. So that may or may not be on there. Anyway, so we're going to have the vote on that, and then if that goes through, we will have an extra vote on top of that to decide the actual method of us leaving the thing. So at about 50 years later, we will decide there and then whether we are going to leave or rejoin. Meanwhile, the Tories get Brexit done. 3 fucking words. They could have just shouted that at you walking past your house. You wouldn't even have to open your fucking door. But Labour are like, we've got a 100-page costed manifesto and this is the way. And we divide the right because it's all 3-word slogans. Yes. Yes. It always has been. We will fight them on the beaches. Yes. That's the way it works. It's advertising, it's marketing. Stop thinking that people are going to sit down and read a 100-page Labour manifesto and go, yeah, well, I've got some good economic policies in here. Most people are getting on with their lives. We need to get better at this. Simple as that. We need to get better at it. And I'm sorry to say, but the Labour and the Democrats are not getting it. They're really fucking not getting it. Maybe we should assume that they are getting it and that it's going to be self-evident. But it's not. You see, we're falling into the trap as well. Because we're like, oh my God, it's obvious that the right keep winning because they use simple 3-word slogans. Whereas you decide that everyone has to read a fucking, we all have to do homework. It's like people who haven't been to school for 40 years are going to do homework. Are you mad? People work hard. They get home. They want to just veg out in front of the TV, watch a soap opera, watch the footy. They don't want to read a fucking book. It's just bananas. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. So, the Labour need to make their wins front page news. They need to make it, do a stunt. And the Lib Dems had the right idea in the last election. They just did stunts. They knew that their policies, no one was going to read them. No one's going to look. No one's going to... Hands up if you read the Lib Dem manifesto. Like one hand in the whole country goes up. It's Ed Davies. That's it. That's it. But did people notice the Lib Dems in that election? Yes, they fucking did. The Greens make this mistake as well. The Greens are shite at marketing. They're absolutely fucking awful at it. What do? They're never in the news. They're like, oh, we published a report. We published a report that climate change is bad. Cool. Meanwhile, Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, you can never get them off the fucking screens on the TV every night. Doing stupid shit, but getting in the news. Yeah, make America free again. There you go. Yeah. Well, going back to the Gulf Stream, let's just call it the Gulf Stream conversation. My response to this, we talk about it. I said, just to you. I said, do you know that we are on the same line of latitude as Lake Baikal? And they went, no. And I went, you will. That's it. There's the line. That you can put that on a fucking poster. Have a little map, with Britain mapped out and Lake Baikal and a straight line between it. So it's really visually obvious. You will. Minus 40 degrees. Frozen fucking lake. That's what it's going to be like here in the winter. If we keep making climate change a thing, which we're not alleviating it in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying I'm the best at coming up with this kind of stuff, but I can do it, right? And if I can do it, then other people can do it. Maybe I'm just assuming. Maybe I'm just the same problem here. I'm just assuming because it comes easily to me. It comes easily to everyone, and it should be self-evident to everyone, but I know it's not. That's the whole point of this show today. It's really not. And I know there's all the stuff going on in the news. I know we probably should be talking about the fact that Trump turned the front of the White House lawn into a used Tesla fucking showroom yesterday for some reason to help his mate out, which is just, mind-blowing. Just absolutely mind-blowing that happened, but it did. But I think this is really, really important because we live in a world where the right set the narrative. They set the terms of the conversation. We never control the conversation. We're always chasing the error. We're always commenting on something stupid that the right have done. Whether it's Rupert Lowe in the fuck party, whether it's Michael Gove giving evidence that he'd given 128 million fucking pounds to his mate down the pub for PPE that didn't even fucking work. Whatever it is, we've got Trump and Duterte and Putin. It's always the right wingers. We're always talking about what the fucking right wing are up to. And when Labour make a mistake, of course, we point it out because it's, we feel morally obliged to say, hey, what, you're banning puberty blockers for trans kids but not for cis kids? What the fuck is wrong with you, Wes Streeting, you haunted ventriloquist dummy, you? But no, we'll point that out. But the right will point it out as well. We don't even probably need to point it out because the right are going to do it anyway. They're going to do that part of the job for us. But when it comes to building up our side, we are shite at it. Because we're all just arguing amongst ourselves, purity test, and not working together. The left don't work well together, I'm afraid. Sorry. I've discovered the secret a long time ago. We just give each other space when needed, says a Leapshin. Oh, I think that's a good plan, Leapshin, across the board there. It's called, Katrina Tam's here. I'm going to say it in this voice. I'm not being offensive, Katrina, when this. It's called the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridian Oceanic Current, or something. Never heard of Lake Baikal. Probably better to say it'll be like Siberia. Yeah, I mean, you'd have it on the map, wouldn't you? You'd have Siberia, because people know Siberia's cold, and like have it, as you design the image, it would show how cold Lake Baikal is, and it'll have minus 40 degrees, and then have a line going to it. On the left, we are very purity motivated. Yes, we are, Christopher Bowles, to a ridiculous degree. Like when I'll say the Gulf Stream, because people have heard of the fucking Gulf Stream. People have heard of it. I guess people haven't heard of Lake Baikal. They have heard of Siberia. That's a very good point, actually, that Katrina's made. But people haven't heard of the AMOC. They haven't heard of it. They'll say, isn't she a politician in America? Like, they won't know what it is. The vast majority of people will not know what it is. So if you start trying to tell them what it is, two things. First of all, it bores them. Secondly, it makes them feel stupid for not knowing that in the first place. So just use terms that people understand and stop correcting people when they make a little tiny fucking mistake. If someone wants to call something, and it's not technically, that's not actually the right name for it anymore because they did change the name from Calcutta to Kolkata. So if we're going to talk about this, we've got to be respectful and we get the name right. It's just a fucking... Okay, right. Generally speaking, I'll say Kolkata, right? But I understand that most people in this country still know it as Calcutta, even though it changed its name 25 years ago. Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that we get the message across to people. And if we're spending all our time going, well, actually, if you look at it, it's not 38%, Graham. It's 37.999 recurring, which, technically speaking, yes, that could be the same as 38% if you do it via quadrilaterals. But if you're looking at the sine curve at the cotangent, oh fuck off! Can't be dealing. Don't give people advice if they don't ask for it. And try not to correct people. No one likes it. Say, yeah, that's a good point, and then move on to something else. Unless it's like, I'm not gonna vaccinate my kids. I mean, that's not just correcting someone when you tell them they're a fucking idiot. That's actually help saving their children's lives. So you're actually doing a good thing there. But when it's something petty, when it's something really fucking petty. I had a friend, I still do actually, but who was obsessed with always pointing out when I didn't get the right shade of the colour. I'm fucking colourblind. I don't fucking know. I just go, oh, it's brown. Well, actually, Graham, that's not brown, it's maroon. Or as Australians would say, maroon, for some reason. I don't know why they say it like that, but they do. But yeah, so I'd be like, okay. There's like nothing I can do about it. Like, I can't really tell if something's purple or violet. It kind of looks the same to me. But does it matter? No. It just made me feel like a tit for not knowing the correct name for that particular colour that I couldn't even see anyway. Yeah. So have we got any examples here of like, while we do the papers in a moment, give me some examples. We've got 10 minutes left. Give me some examples where you think, where people... You assume, let's do it for you, like where you assumed something would speak for itself, but then it didn't. And from my experience, relationships, when friends have got into what I've regarded as toxic relationships, and I've thought, well, give it 6 months and they'll see. 16 years later, they're still married, but whatever. But yeah, it's one of them. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, if anyone wants to give advice on, this is solicited advice, this is advice that is asked for, on ways that the Democrats and Labour, ways other than what I've been talking about, where they can combat this problem, this issue that we have on the left, this tyrannical curse of knowledge, which is what it is. Lucy Willis says, like me 20 years ago, chiding superhero movies for not being comic book accurate, like the cock I was. Yeah, I mean, we've all done it. We've all been a bit pedantic when we really didn't need to be. Captain says, Tories and Reform are pretty much in lockstep. On the left, we have Owen Jones help drilling holes in the boat. Can't argue with that. Christopher says that the poor spend all their money, therefore giving them disposable income will improve local economies. I think that's. I mean, I don't think that's a fallacy. I think if we do give people money, they will. People who aren't like mega rich and have yachts and helicopters and stuff, they'll spend it in this country. Nick and Diff, wow, that's amazing. I think Helen Bonham Carter and Tim Burton lived apart too. Space definitely helps, I think. And he says the most often used line by Remain, it was, I know it's not perfect, but yeah, that drove me up the wall. Like, the EU was the most amazing thing that humans have ever put together. And we did not sing the praises of it enough. And look, I wasn't in the country at the time, so I'm going to try and absolve myself from any responsibility for this. But I was not in the country in the run-up to the referendum. I came home for the referendum so I could vote. Well, actually, no, I came home for Glastonbury. I could have voted remotely or got my mum to vote on my behalf, which I'd done in previous elections. But yeah, I wanted to vote. I wanted a picture of me at the polling station saying I'm voting to Remain, which exists. I did do a blog entry that was read by like 3 people and my mum, saying 3 reasons why any true Brit would vote to Remain, and invoked Winston Churchill and the Commonwealth and all the things around the world that we're part of, and why we should be part of this as well, because that's what Britain does. But it didn't get my full bodied attention until the following year. And the reason why was because I think a lot of us were shell-shocked, just like when Trump got re-elected, or elected in the first place. And a lot of us thought, well, it's not going to work, is it? It's not going to happen. It's only an advisory vote. It's just as those, the fact that we assume that, no, they're not actually going to go through with this. They're going to make some excuse and say, look, we'll look into it. We'll get some more things from the EU in response, whatever. But then with the, in I think it was September of that year, we had the problematic guy becoming leader of the Labour Party, and then it just went downhill from there, because it slowly dawned on us that actually it was going to go ahead. It was actually going to happen. Although, I've got to say, a lot of Remainers, when we were out on the march and stuff, we're like, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And it's a nice thought that we were going to, it wouldn't happen, because it didn't make any sense to us. It's terrible. It was going to ruin our economy for generations. And yeah, well, unfortunately, that's not the way it went. I'm saying it's what's self-evident to me, but middle-class politicians refuse to acknowledge it, says Christopher Bowles. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Leapshin, yeah, they bought houses next to each other with an internal door between the houses, and they've been very successful at staying together. Hang on. No. I think Tim Burton and Helen Bonham Carter, they've split up. You might want to look that up, but I think they have. Unless you're talking about Frida Kahlo. So I was trying to do her eyebrow there. Frida and her husband. What's her husband's name? He was an artist too, wasn't he? Fuck, I've forgotten Frida Kahlo's husband's name. Oh well, I suppose that's reverse feminism there for you. No, reverse misogyny. Love him or loathe him. Owen Jones is a very clever guy, says Mr. 27. Anne Phillips says Woody Allen and Mia Farrow did the living apart thing too, but he married her daughter, so it doesn't work for everyone. Yeah, it's a bit scary. Any idea how to make a complaint about a Labour MP? Mine has just improved herself to be a useless waste of space. I don't know, Leapshin. I don't know how you make a complaint, maybe to the Labour Party, or maybe you can make a complaint to Parliament, depending on how severe it is. Koala meat. My cat lives on board all year round with me. We even have been to New Zealand together. 9-year-old tabby called Albert. Lol. Oh, that's very cool. Come over to the island. We got Nick and Diff saying these comments are quite funny. One says the left won't compromise, and the one below it says Starmer is a Tory. Case in point. I am so glad, despite everything that's going on right now, I'm very glad that Starmer is our leader and not any of those other clowns that are, in the Labour Party, in the Tory Party, well, in the Labour Party as well, but mostly the Tory Party. Who, imagine if Liz Truss was in charge of the country right now. How embarrassed would you be? How much could you possibly cringe without doing your back in? And Clupid Boriscope is saying, regardless of your opinion on Owen Jones, he told you what would happen when Labour got into power, and now you're seeing it with your own eyes. Well, Clupid, the thing is that Labour always do this. They'll always be not the Tories, and they will always disappoint a lot of people, especially people like Owen Jones, who weren't going to vote for them anyway, and with what they do. But the thing is, Owen Jones voted for Labour in 2005 after the invasion of Iraq. I didn't vote for Labour in 2005. And he tried to use that as a weapon against me, as like in one of his daft little purity tests, to say, haha, how can you how can you say that what was his argument? It's a bit weird. Only he could criticize Starmer, who he hates, with the, an absolute red mist descends. Femi's the same. Femi absolutely hates Starmer with a passion that I found a bit out of character for Femi, but he really, really hates him. I don't really have any strong feelings either way. I'm just kind of glad that it's him in charge, not the Tories. But Labour in power are never going to achieve the dreams and the hopes of many of the people who vote for them. And I'll tell you what it's like. It's like reading a book, your favourite book, and some fucker turns it into a movie. It hits and then it gets processed through someone else's imagination, someone else's movie studio. It's exactly the same with Labour. Your hopes and dreams for Labour are what they'll be able to do when they're in power. You're like, we want them to do this, 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 and this. And then they get into power and they're like, well, we would like to do all those things, but, we're up against reality. And it makes it very difficult to get any of this shit done. But if Labour only get 40% of what I want them to do done, nationalising the trains, building houses that are affordable, looking after the people who need looking after in society, the very bare minimum, let's say. But then 60%, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Stopping puberty blockers for trans kids. What's that all about? At least I'm getting 40%. At least I'm getting that 40% of what they're doing that I actually agree with. Whereas with the Conservatives and with Trump and with Marine Le Pen and with the fucking AFD and with fucking Millie in Argentina, I get 0%. I get absolutely nothing of what I want. I just get 100% of what I don't want, which is fascism. So yeah. Pete's Music says boats are indeed cheap. Just now we checked out a decent 6-berth cruiser for 10k. Needs a bit of work, but nothing drastic. Well, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. I mean, 10k. You better get an outboard motor for that these days. And One Piece. I think we have a bot or a troll. No, that's just Wayne. That's just Wayne. Oi, Wayne. So yeah, we're gonna just quickly look at the papers. We've only got a minute left of the show, so this is gonna have to be very quick. But I don't know if it's particularly relevant to what we're talking about today. We've got the BBC racing commentator John Hunt paid tribute to his wife and 2 daughters and said that the screams of hell await cowardly killer Clifford. And he said, I'm so proud of my girls. This hell analogy, rolling out the red carpet to hell, is going to be mentioned in quite a few of the papers this morning. Man United with the £2 billion circus tent in the middle of Manchester. Whoopee. There's a woman with a hat. I have no idea who that is. Zara Tyndall. She's on the front page of a newspaper, so I guess I should know who she is, but I don't. Oh well. Ceasefire in Ukraine if Putin agrees. Zelensky agrees to 30-day truce and new minerals deal with America as attention turned to Moscow. Will you dare wear a boho dress? Yeah. Kyiv open to ceasefire as Trump restart aid. Yep. Screams of hell await you. That was from the BBC commentator whose daughters and wife were brutally murdered by a fucking psychopath who'd been watching Andrew Tate videos. Ukraine agrees ceasefire deal here. Jail and then hell. Coward gets 3 life terms. He'll never get out. Good. Can £2 billion circus tent revive Man United? Okay, yeah. And then we've got Alison Peterson, who is a gob on the stick who writes for the Telegraph, quite prolific. I think she's one of those people who likes to write obnoxious things, and if anyone writes anything mean about her, she threatens to sue them. One of them. Here's Trump trying to sell his rusty old ship fucking thing. What's it called? A Tesla Twatmobile. Swastika. That's it. Trying to sell a swastika. President buys into Tesla. And it's got Elon Musk and his son. Whatever. Putin told to agree Ukraine ceasefire. Well, we'll see what happens. Neil Tennant on the tragedy of Russia. That should be quite interesting to read after they did. They re-recorded Go West by the Village People, which was originally written about people moving to the west of America from the east coast to the west coast because that you could be gay there and get away with it in a way that you couldn't get away with it on the east coast. However, when the Pet Shop Boys got hold of it, they turned it into a sort of gay anthem. Even though Neil Tennant's gay, they turned it from a gay anthem into a anthem about the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the USSR, which was quite cool. A great time to be alive. A great video as well, if you remember it. Go West. Anyway, US says ball in Russia's court as Ukraine agrees 30-day ceasefire. We've done that. Eiffel Tower of the North. No, it's a tent, mate. It was a fucking circus tent. It looks like one of the tents at Glastonbury. The circus tent. The comedy tent. It looks like the comedy tent in Glastonbury. Okay, so global stock markets in meltdown as Trump tariff war takes hold, but it's all Biden's fault, apparently. They rolled out the red carpet in hell. That's the metro. We've got the drone strikes here. And it took me a while to understand what this actually was. It's a building and their windows that have been hit by a drone. Ukraine ready to agree truce. Trump ratchets up kind of the trade war with 50% aluminium and steel tariffs. That was obviously written last night before he at midnight decided not to do that. Before midnight, and hot foil dies, whatever that means, I don't know. Right, buy some hot foil. Trump wears his MAGA one. Yeah. Neil Tennant was an editor at Marvel's UK office. That's really interesting. It's from Newcastle as well. The pair of Geordies, the boys from the Pet Shop Boys. Which you wouldn't necessarily think, working class Geordie boys, but they are. How disrespectful of Musk to wear a baseball cap in the White House? Well, exactly. And bring his kid again. Liebchen, well, I've had a coffee and conversed with you a lot, despite my wife gate crashing, but my mood is greatly lifted. So thank you, everyone. Oh, well, thank you for coming on board, Liebchen, on our little sail across the world, the choppy seas of all the shit that's going on right now. But yeah, I hope I made my point. That's what I wanted to talk about today. The curse of knowledge and the fact that we can't let the facts speak for themselves because they clearly don't. Climate change. The facts have not been speaking for themselves since the 1970s. So 50 years now, they have not been speaking for themselves. Someone needs to speak on their behalf loudly and clearly and with rhetorical flourishes that get people's attention. Bread and circuses. Yes, I know it's not ideal, but it is the way of the world. You piss with the dick you've got. Stuart, I love having chats with pro-Trump supporters. They're deluded. I hate it, mate. It makes me really sad. Like it kills an important part of my soul of talking to people and they're that deluded. And you're like, but. And those goalposts, they just love to move, don't they? Those goalposts. Move the goalposts. Move the goal. Oh, well, yeah. I guess Liverpool wished the goalpost moved last night. Anyway, moving on. So thanks very much for watching. I'll be back at 12 o'clock for Prime Minister's Questions. Trying to make it bearable. Try and make it bearable. Actually, Kemi Badnock wasn't so bad last week. Let's see what she's like this week. Who knows? Only time will tell. A week is a long time in politics and all that jazz. So I'll just say thank you so much for watching, and thanks for the super chats, thanks for the chat, thanks for all the messages. And if you'd like to have, as I said, if you'd like to have a little rose after your name, just hit that like button. Hit the like is a like. Sorry, a rose after your name? No, that's not a like, is it? That's a join. Hit the join button to get a rose after your name. Join. Okay, and then before you go, give us a like. Doesn't cost anything, but it really does help the channel out a lot. So if you haven't given us a like yet, please give us a like on the way out. And until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.